Hey guys, Joel's coming at you with another reasoning session, and today I'm going to be talking about two of the most prominent seers of the Bible. One of them was particularly skilled in dreams, and the other one had some profound visions.
Come now and let us reason together. Come now, we can talk it over.
So the two people I'm talking about are Joseph and Dani'el. And interestingly enough, both of these men did their greatest work outside of the land of Israel. Joseph did his work on the west in Egypt, and Dani'el did his work in the east in Babylon. And both of them got there, not by their own choice. Joseph was sold into slavery by his own brothers, mind you. And Dani'el got there because the Babylonians basically ransacked the land of Judah and exiled all of the people into Babylon. And the exile of the kingdom of Judah, mind you, was kind of deserved because the king was real stubborn and there's a whole lot of politics and of course the religious aspect of it. He just didn't care about the divine source. But let's talk about Joseph first. Now Joseph first starts out by having his own dreams where he sees him and his brothers binding sheaves of wheat in the field, and then all of the 11 other sheaves belonging to his brothers bow down and make obeisance to his. After that, he sees a dream where 11 stars and the sun and moon bow to him. He tells his family of these dreams and they're scandalized. They say, "Will we ever bow to you? You're like the second youngest of all of us." Even his father points out how these dreams just don't line up. But his father still loves Joseph more than his other brothers and puts him in charge and actually makes him overseer to go out and spy after them when they're tending their sheep in the field. But his brothers see him coming, and he's wearing this robe of many colors which his father gave him as a sign of authority. And they're jealous and they say, "You know what, let's kill him." But the oldest one says, "No, let's just, get rid of him." So they throw him in a well. Eventually their conscience kind of gets the better of them and they're like, he's going to die in there. Let's just sell him to these slave traders that are coming through. And the slave traders end up taking him into Egypt. And after a whole slew of circumstances, he winds up being falsely accused and thrown into prison. In prison, he interprets two people's dreams, and they both come to pass. And he says to the one who's going to be restored to his office as cupbearer to the Pharaoh, he says, "Please remember me and tell Pharaoh that I didn't do anything to deserve this punishment." But on the day of his release, this guy's so excited he forgets everything until 2 years later. Pharaoh has two dreams and they really trouble him because...
Well, it's ridiculous actually. See, I'm standing by the river and 7 fat cows come out and they start grazing. And then 7 skinny cows come out and they eat the fat cows. It gets worse. I have the same dream, only with stalks of grain. Nobody knows what it means.
And the skinny stalks eat the fat stalks, 7 again in number. So Pharaoh tells his people, tell me the meaning of this dream, and no one can do it. None of the magicians, nobody can do it. But the cupbearer remembers and he says, "You know what, there's this guy Joseph in the prison and he interpreted my dream and the baker's dream and both of it came true." So Pharaoh sent and called Joseph. And they brought him hastily out of the dungeon, and he shaved himself and changed his raiment and came in unto Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, "I have dreamed a dream, and there is none that can interpret it. And I have heard, saith you, that you can understand a dream to interpret it." But this is Joseph's response that I really want to get into. And Joseph answered Pharaoh, saying, "It is not me. God shall give Pharaoh an answer of peace." So Joseph really gave credit to where credit was due. And it's because of that he had the interpretation. He was able to share with Pharaoh the interpretation that there would be 7 years of plenty followed by 7 years of famine. And because his interpretation was correct, Egypt entered into a state of prosperity like never before. This was literally the time when Egypt went from just like a local kingdom, actually 2 kingdoms, to a world power. because everybody then started flocking to Egypt to buy the grain, and they've even uncovered some of these storage pits in recent times. Modern academia might not like to admit it, but these things have been documented and they are real.
The complex at Saqqara contains 11 massive pits, which even the Egyptians are at a loss to explain. They are not tombs, for all tombs were underground and carefully sealed, while these were accessible from the surface, and they are extremely large. But most fascinating is the fact that they are all connected by chutes. Ron believes these were the grain storage pits of the 7-year famine. As grain was removed from one pit, grain from the other pits flowed through the chutes, making the grain always accessible from one location. These are within the wall of the step pyramid complex, which has only one entrance, and it opens to a long covered passageway with small cubicles on each side, each just the right size for a person to sit with perhaps a small table. The narrow, singular entrance would have allowed only a few people to enter at a time. There was no doubt in Ron's mind that this was the main center of grain distribution on a massive scale. As people arrived to get their grain, they lined up to enter the long corridor. Inside, they paid one of the cashiers in one of the cubicles for the grain. After payment was made, perhaps they were given a sack for grain which reflected the amount of their payment. Then they proceeded through the corridor straight to the area of the grain bins. Once there, they descended the stairway next to the storage bins, handed their sack to a worker who filled it with grain and returned it to them. Then they exited through a small door on the lower level, which led to the outside of the complex. When the pits were first excavated, bits of grain still remained in them.
They can only be described as real huge storage pits of grain that would funnel this stuff, and you would have office benches where people would just sign papers and pick up their grain and pay for it. It was amazing how this stuff was structured, and it's all because Joseph was put in charge, because he had the spirit of Elohim in him. But now we head east to Babylon, and in the time of Daniel, Nebuchadnezzar had a crazy dream. He couldn't even remember it. So he called all his magicians and his astrologers and his sorcerers, everybody that could interpret these dreams. And he said, look, I've dreamed a dream. Now tell me what the dream was, and then tell me the meaning. And they said, you know what? If you don't tell us the dream, how can we even begin to interpret it? And he's like, off with their heads. In the land, Daniel was trained as one of these learned men of Babylon. But when he found out about the decree that all the wise men were going to be literally decapitated, he said, you know what? Just buy some time, plead with the king, and I'm going to go in and get an interpretation for this. So he goes home. Then was the secret revealed unto Daniel in a night vision. Then Daniel blessed the God of heaven. Daniel answered and said, blessed be the name of God forever and ever, for wisdom and might are his, and he changes the times and the seasons. He removes kings and sets up kings. He gives wisdom unto the wise, and knowledge to them that know understanding. He reveals the deep and secret things. He knows what is in the darkness, and the light dwells with him. I thank you and praise you, O you God of my fathers, who has given me wisdom and might, and has made known unto me now what we desired of you, for you have now made known unto us the king's matter. So then Daniel goes before the king, and he says, look, king, it's been revealed to me what your dream was and the interpretation. And this dream was the dream of the statue with the head of gold, the arms and the breasts of silver, the belly and the thighs of bronze, the legs of iron, and the feet partially of iron and partially of clay. And that's a story I made another video on. You could check it right here. But honestly, like, both of these people bore witness to foreign kings that the real source of wisdom, the real source of knowledge is the Elohim. The word that is actually translated as God is Elohim. And that's God or source in his fullness, in his totality. There are other terms in the Hebrew scriptures used to describe source. There's Yahweh, there's Adonai, and even Baal is used to describe a mask that people put in front of God, as in idols and other images or definitions, but source is defineless. And it's that power that we can tap into and actually get true visions, true wisdom, true understanding in the real causal realms. And from there, we can literally start seeing things and understanding things that we couldn't even have begun to even imagine that we could have before. So tap into source today. Get in tune with this divine energy that knows all things, sees all things, creates all things, and you too can have these divine visions and divine understanding flow through you like never before. I love you guys from the bottom of my heart. It's kind of getting late, so I'll check you guys in the next reasoning sesh. Joel signing out once again. Agape, Salaam, Namaste, Shalom.
I have the same dream, only with stalks of grain. Nobody knows what it means. Nobody knows what it means.
Get out of here, man.